I'm joined now by Rajya Sabha Member of Parliament Milind Deora, who worked as a young ministerial colleague in the cabinet of Dr. Manmohan Singh, now a political adversary, but seen what was right and wrong with the Prime Minister at close quarters in his cabinet. Milind, welcome. When you look back at the life and times of Dr. Manmohan Singh, what did you learn from him as a young, impressionable MP in his cabinet? What were the positives that you thought you could latch on to and pick up from the former Prime Minister?
Well, Rahul, firstly, thank you for having me. I have had the privilege of knowing Dr. Manmohan Singh from a young age. He shared a very, very close relationship with my late father. And in fact, 4 months before he became Prime Minister of India, until December 2003, whenever he would come to Mumbai, most of the times that he would come to Mumbai, he would stay at our home. And in that sense, I would have the privilege to interact with him during my student days, well before I entered politics, when I first became an MP, when I was a member of his government, even after he demitted office. And we would have conversations ranging from, geopolitics, culture, party affairs, to India's economy, to the world economy. And I have many examples and there are many anecdotes that I can give you. But broadly, what I would say is that what struck me about him when I first met him, the first impression to the last impression was that he was someone who had no ego about him. He was always accessible. When I say accessible, I mean not just in terms of his time, but he was willing to share his mind space with people who meet him. He never discriminated on the basis of age or experience. When I was a young student studying in America, at that point when I would go to him to seek his advice, he was around and say, what do you think of this? I want to know what young people think of this. And there are so many anecdotes that I can think of, but what I will remember of him was that although he was my leader, although he was a senior to me, much more experienced, a teacher really, he made you feel comfortable, like you were talking to a friend and a colleague. And that, I think, is a very rare trait among people, and especially among leaders in politics.
You say you have lots of anecdotes about your time with Dr. Manmohan Singh. Could you share some of those, some unseen facets of his personality which were captured in the anecdotes that you have, which our viewers may not know about?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I was a very late entrant on Twitter, Rahul. I think I joined Twitter around 2009 or 10, when many Indian politicians were beginning to join Twitter and using Twitter as a means to communicate with people who were obviously moving away from print and television towards social media. And soon after I joined Twitter, and I quickly realized what the pros and cons are of being online. I remember going to Dr. Manmohan Singh when he was Prime Minister and suggesting that, sir, you must be on Twitter. We must get you onto Twitter. And explaining to him why Twitter was important. And he was not someone who was savvy about social media. And soon after that, we created a PMO India account. He didn't have a personal Dr. Manmohan Singh account, but he had a PMO India account. And he was very honest, very candid in saying that I don't know much about this, but if you think it's an important platform, if you think that it's an important means of communication, then I'm all for it. Please meet my media advisor. Please meet my media team. Please sort out the nuts and bolts, and I'm willing to get onto it. So a man who was extremely honest, had no insecurities about him, was willing to accept an area that he didn't know much about and bring in people who knew more about it, trust them, and allow them to run that process. Which I think that's true leadership. That's true. That's the way good leaders work. I remember once when I was an IT minister in his government, and we were talking about the national governance plan, which was essentially used to use the internet, the power of the internet and technology to disintermediate government, to allow for citizens to access services far more efficiently, eliminate corruption, eliminate layers of bureaucracy. And we had done a very successful project called the Passport Seva Kendra, where you could renew your passport, get a fresh passport through the means of technology and the internet. We had implemented the e-filing of income tax returns. And there was a conversation, a meeting happening where we were talking about interoperability between different ministries, between central government and state governments. So he was very clear that, when we were talking about this e-governance issue and these technical terms came up, Dr. Manmohan Singh was very clear and candid about the fact that he didn't understand those technical terms, but he said very clearly in front of a lot of senior people and officials included that Milind Deora is a young minister in my government. He understands these things, and we leave it to his judgment. So I found that very heartening. I found that people who have that kind of style of leadership, that they're people who have no insecurity about them. They don't discriminate on the basis of age or experience. They don't have those traditional thought processes that, because someone is experienced or has age on their side, we should trust them more or rely on them more. He was willing to listen to new ideas. He was open to new ideas.
Milind Deora, for joining us and sharing your thoughts on the life and times of Dr. Manmohan Singh. Thank you.